views expressed on this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
This show's audio was via a Skype call.
Get fired up for Spirit Fire Radio with your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer. Get ready to shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in these modern times. Bring purpose to your life through practical spirituality and add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. Now, here are your hosts, Dorothy, Riddle, and Steve Kramer.
Welcome to Spirit Fire Radio and a brand new month. Hard to believe it is December already. I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Dr. Dorothy Riddle. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Steve. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to be here too. Do you have your thinking cap on with your little antenna? Because we're going to talk about intuition for this entire month, and what a juicy subject, what an interesting subject. And listeners, I just know that we are going to really uncover some very interesting insights about intuition. How do you feel about it, Dorothy?
Well, I think it's going to be fascinating. And what I find particularly interesting, and we'll get into it during the month, is that while intuition is something that has been talked about a lot in metaphysical circles, the U.S. Army has actually had a research project the last couple of years exploring how to train intuition in the armed forces in order to equip them to function better in the field.
Wow,
and
beautiful.
So I know we'll get to that later in the month, but it was really interesting to me that that's out there. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, so many of the concepts that we've talked about this whole year as we go month to month, there's so much science behind it. I just find it so exhilarating, the ways in which spirituality and science seem to come together, because really at the end of the day, we're just talking about energy. We're made of it. We are immersed in it. We are it. And it's just so enjoyable to month by month find new ways to talk about energy, which inevitably leads us to spirituality and science, which is very cool, Dorothy.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of quotes to start us off, Steve.
Perfect.
So the first one is by a French mathematician, Henri Poincaré, and he says, "It is through science that we prove, but through intuition that we discover." And Robert Graves.
I didn't even. That's great. So say it again, Dorothy. Sorry. It's through
science that we prove, but through intuition that we discover.
Yes. Nice.
And then Robert Graves says, "Intuition is the supralogic that cuts out all the routine processes of thought and leaps straight from the problem to the answer." And one more, John Nesbitt says, "Intuition becomes increasingly valuable in the new information society precisely because there is so much data."
Oh, we could talk about that for a whole show, right?
So one of the ways of thinking about intuition is that it is attending to patterns and possibilities in information rather than the data itself. And in fact, the Myers-Briggs, if people are familiar with that, there is an intuition sensation dimension. It's a pair of psychological preferences, and sensation is data from your five senses, but intuition is that attending to the patterns and possibilities rather than simply to the data itself.
Nice. So we think of the sixth sense, right? We hear that quite a bit. The sixth sense. Would you say that is is that a good way of referring to intuition?
Well, we can. I mean, it is an ability. We can think of it as the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. It's that kind of, having a sense of a hunch, of knowing without necessarily being able to put into words why we know it. But one of the things related to intuition that I think is important is that the whole movement towards rationality that occurred in Europe in the scientific method in that whole period really emphasized that the only thing that mattered, the only thing that existed, was what you could prove through your five senses.
Yeah.
And so intuition really was seen as something that was completely other. And for myself, I had this experience, Steve, where what I found was that I would say something, or I would say, we need to do this, or this is what's important. And then I would backpedal and try to rationalize it. And the rationalization often didn't work out very well. And then I discovered a series of writings talking about the non-physical senses. And, we think of things like clairvoyance, being able to see clearly, clairaudience, being able to hear clearly. And then there's the sense which is really intuition, which is claircognizance, clear knowing. In other words, without having to go to physical data, or some people call it straight knowledge. And that is what we're talking about this month, is that ability to draw on experience that we have and our connection into the common energy field to come up with ideas that don't necessarily link to specific physical events.
Right, or to data, rearranging data, come up with something new. I believe the word leap was in your in one of the quotes, and it does feel very quantum, right? It's this idea of just of almost a download or a being unified with an answer that happens just so quickly, or an awareness even. I've never heard of claircognizance before. I also find it interesting, Dorothy, that when you say clairvoyance and clairaudience, that you say clear sight and clear audience, because I think so many people, when they hear someone's clairvoyant, they think it's beyond the physical sight. That it's such a clarity. And I think there's something to that. There's so much clarity to it that it almost need not be in the physical. Someone who possesses clairaudience, there's no distortion in any way. It's just instantaneous, if you will. So there does seem to be this time element, or not a time, or a time. Time is not a factor, actually.
Well, that's interesting that you raise that, because on the one hand, we use the term intuition to refer to knowledge that comes to us because we are kind of subconsciously or unconsciously analyzing patterns of data that we have all accumulated. So it's a search function. It's as a result of this very rapid search function within ourselves. But there's another meaning of intuition, and that is to perceive what is in the field. That, in other words, that it hasn't happened yet, because time is actually an illusion. It's not. It's a construct that we use to organize our experience. But there is a certain way in which time, past, present, and future all combined together.
Mm.
And so we can have knowledge of something that has not yet happened or that we have not yet experienced. That's another way of using intuition. And I want to just give an example, if I could, Steve.
We might need to just wait till the break.
Okay, sure.
We have about a minute to the break. But I wanted, as you were saying that, it's making me think of our last month when we talked about the heart, and we were talking about the way that the heart is related, that it's got its own field, it's got neurons, and it's actually creates hormones, and it's a very complicated structure. It's not just this pump. But I also think of our digestive system. When we say we've got a hunch or a gut feeling, and it makes me think of our enteric nervous system and the ways that, where does that come from? This gut feeling, that it hasn't happened yet. And somehow we're relying on information that's in a field somewhere out there. And that there's so many, I find it so fascinating, and we'll definitely talk about this throughout the month. But I find it so fascinating that our gut as well has got its own brain. It's got its own nervous system. So we always think of our brain as being where we receive, where we get our thoughts and our data. It's really just the computer. It stores the data. But really, there's so many aspects of our being. Our heart is one, and I know we're going to talk about magnetic fields and toroidal flows and the information that they hold. And our gut does the same thing. Our gut picks up on things, and it actually communicates with our brain before we process it in our own mind. So, there we go. I just said we have to go to a break, and I started yapping. So we're going to go to a break, and you hold the thought that you were going to, or an example, and I look forward to it. Listeners, we'll be right back.
Stay juicy. Tune in to Your Juicy Love with me, Una Drake, co-hosting monthly with Dr. Pat, and every second Monday at 12 p.m. on Transformation Talk Radio. My show, Your Juicy Love, helps you find the dynamic, life-affirming love you've always wanted. Transform your relationships and bring peace, joy, and juicy, juicy love to planet Earth. For more information, visit unadrake.com.
Tune into the wisdom of your soul for guidance on living a joyful life. On Soul Wisdom Radio, Wendy will provide inspiration to raise your vibration and connect with your higher self and guides. Learn how to balance your ego and to progress spiritually on Soul Wisdom Radio with Wendy Rose Williams. Visit wendyrosewilliams.com or Transformation Talk Radio to learn more about a healing session with Wendy and her events and publications.
Now you can be a part of one of the most powerful programs to help create a more joyful, loving, abundant, and peaceful world. Every day at 12 noon in any time zone, join millions of other people around the world to spend a few minutes in joy, love, and gratitude. Brought to you by Robert Schoenfeld, host of The Art of Powerful Living Radio. Together, we can raise the vibration of the planet. For more information, visit globalmomentofjoy.com.
The Janice Underwood Show, helping you create the life you want, not the life you tolerate. Tune in each Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio as Janice delves into the life creator system and the next step in your spiritual evolution. Janice Underwood is gifted at helping spiritually minded people shift their mindsets to unleash the creator within. Our souls wish to wake us up. Those of us listening hear the call. Do you? For more information, visit janiceunderwood.com.
What is a brilliant culture, and how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you align your culture with your business strategy for exceptional results. Looking for a culture that drives organizational excellence? Listen to Cultural Brilliance Radio, the second and fourth Friday of each month at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit culturalbrilliance.com.
Be you, plus live your purpose equals joy. That's the motto of Unstuck Joy with Vicki Todd. Vicki believes you were born with gifts that are meant to make the world brighter. Each show will feature an art visioning journal prompt to help you create your way to soul clarity. If you're ready to get unstuck and create more joy, this show is for you.
Tune in the first and third Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information, visit VickiWorldArt.com.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. We are at the beginning of a juicy month talking about intuition. It is a subject that I love, and I just know I'm going to learn more about. Dorothy, I met my wonderful co-host at a conference, and Dorothy was giving a wonderful lecture, and something in my intuition said, I need to know this person. And here we are doing this wonderful show, and it's really been a wonderful collaboration. It is a collaboration indeed that we'd both like to tell you a little bit about our organizations. The School for Esoteric Studies reached out to Spirit Fire and said, hey, let's join and partner for this season of Spirit Fire Radio, and it's just been amazing. So Spirit Fire is an educational nonprofit. We are dedicated to fostering and to generating consciousness and awareness and educating people on the importance of spirituality in their everyday lives in practical ways. We do that through our own meditation practice called the Practice of Living Awareness. I've got an amazing Living Awareness retreat coming up. We always do a New Year's retreat at the beginning of the year to set the intention for 2018. We've got a great retreat center. We have online classes, so you can find out more about Spirit Fire at spiritfire.com. And Dorothy, tell us about the School for Esoteric Studies.
Yes, I'm with the School for Esoteric Studies. You can find out about us at esotericstudies.net. We are also an educational nonprofit. We focus on providing esoteric discipleship training for persons who have a spiritual practice that they want to deepen. And we do this through a focus on meditation, study, and service. And one of the initiatives that we started a couple of years ago was to reach out to various organizations to work in collaboration, because we recognize that all too often spiritually focused organizations just do their own thing. And we talk about working in group, but we don't necessarily work in group together. And so if you are with an organization that would like to collaborate with us, on our website, esotericstudies.net, you'll find a section on intergroup collaboration, and please take a look and give us get in touch. But we are particularly pleased, or I am particularly pleased with this collaboration with Spirit Fire to do this radio program. It's just wonderful, and I'm going to add to your story, Steve, because at that conference where we met, I had been doing, after my talk, I was doing a book signing in the bookstore for my book, Moving Beyond Duality. And it was time to go back. It was time to close up. And I just had the sense that I should just pause for a moment. And you appeared. And if I hadn't paused,
yes,
we might not have met.
Yes.
So it was wonderful.
Indeed. And just listeners, I will say that the School for Esoteric Studies, their website is just fantastic and just has so much wonderful information. And I only bring that up, Dorothy, because, we talk about ageless wisdom quite a bit. We talk about esotericism and the wisdom teachings. And for me personally, there is something that happens in the intuition or in the higher mind, if you will. There's a knowingness. Whenever when I first was sort of presented with wisdom teachings, there is something that leaps forward at you that says, there's so much truth behind these words, or the way these words are put together. They unpack a vibration that couldn't just be contained in the words that are holding that sentence. So I look forward to getting into that, the ways in which our intuition connects us to truth and wisdom and knowledge. But you mentioned your website, and there's just so much wonderful wisdom on the website. And listeners, it's a great way to just use your intuition. You can read a few wonderful sentences of ageless wisdom, and it's as if your whole mind just goes wah and opens up, and presents you with so much that we intuitively know as the truth. It's lovely.
Well, yes, and for listeners who are not familiar with the term ageless wisdom, what it refers to is a group of basic spiritual teachings from thousands of years ago that underlie all of our spiritual and religious traditions. So it's that fundamental sameness there. But I want to give the example that I was starting to give before the break.
Wonderful.
I was talking about that unconscious perception of something, which is part of the functioning of intuition. And what happened for me was I had moved from the United States to Canada, to Nova Scotia, and I had only been in Canada for a couple of months. I moved in the fall, and then winter hit, and we got winter weather. I was doing a lot of international travel in my consulting business, and I flew back in late one night, and I was driving on a divided highway from the airport, looking for the turnoff to the other divided highway that I needed to take to my home, and with very poor visibility. And I was pretty sure that I saw where I was supposed to turn, and I was just about to turn, and at that point, the car just flipped literally around to where it was facing the opposite direction. It was on the inside, the most left lane. And in other words, I couldn't take the exit that I had been planning to take. Long story short, somebody did stop. They got the auto people to come and help me get turned around and all of that. In that process, the vision field cleared, and what I became aware of was that where I was about to turn off was actually, I would have gone off the overpass and crashed onto the highway below. I was not at the turn that I thought that I was at. Wow. But I was kept from making that. And that, to me, is part of that intuitive tapping into that cloud of knowing,
yes.
that I think of it as being at the soul level of, no, don't go there. Let me intervene to make sure that you don't. And that incident was very profound for me, of recognizing how a part of me, kept me from making a tragic and fatal error.
Wow, that what a blessing, and what a wonderful knowing. We don't take that for granted, Dorothy.
Yeah.
But I do like also that you say that the vision cleared, in a physical sense, then this sort of distortion that was caused just by the environment sort of cleared and allowed you to see that clearly. But right, indeed, on some level, as you say, the soul, or it just simply was not meant to be, right? It was not your time. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad your car got spun around. You got delayed a bit, but
yeah. Well, it's also I think it's important for us to notice times like that and recognize that there are processes that happen outside of our rational brain,
right.
And outside of concrete data, and that's what intuition is all about. It's almost like the data itself is a precipitation of that higher level knowing.
And on some level, you were open to receive that, which is what I love about it. You know, on some level, you were open and not willful in that that's exactly where I'm going and nothing's going to get in my way. It's almost as if there was a pattern. You know, you talk about recognizing patterns. On some level, there wasn't an opening there.
Yeah.
You know, the pattern was intact, and it's almost as if your car, you know, felt the resistance of there not actually being a clear opening, and whether that opening would be fate or whether that opening would actually be, you know, an exit. You know, on some level, that pattern was perceived, and you know, it remained intact.
And we can actually relate this back to what we talked about last week in terms of the field of the heart. That there's one way to think about intuition is thinking with the heart.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to associate thinking with the mind and feeling with the heart, but it's also important to feel with the mind and think with the heart. And
yeah, I mean, I mentioned,
be open to this direct access to information.
Yeah. That there's that flow is constantly happening, right? And that there are magnetic fields everywhere with information, and that we're open to them. I had mentioned that about the heart and the enteric nervous system. I believe you said last week which is just profound, that the heart, the magnetic field that the heart creates is 5,000 times greater than that of the brain, which is amazing. And, you know, we spent the whole last month talking about forgiveness, and it really is about having faith and understanding in our innate interconnectedness, and that we're a part of the one life. And I even almost feel that your story talks of that, you know, that you're aware, the heart is aware on such a profound sort of expansive level that it's picking up data that's not perceived by our brain. It takes our brain to receive, you know, the five senses: the see it, hear it, taste it, smell it, feel it. And if we're listening or we're thinking with our heart, we're going way beyond those five senses. Yeah, beautiful. Dorothy, we're at another break.
Okay.
We will be right back, and we're going to talk about intuition and why it's important. You know, why is it important in everyday life? Why do we need intuition, and how is it useful? We'll be right back.
Winning at the game of money. Lynn Brown is now offering Full Spectrum Finance, a progressive 12-month program that will help you to navigate through the mechanics of financial expansion. Finally, a financial planner who looks at the full spectrum of money and abundance. Engage you in the mental, physical, and energetic aspects of finance. This is Full Spectrum Finance. Are you ready to get into it? For more information, go to fullspectrumfinance.com.
To see your life from an angel's perspective, book a personal consultation with Claire Candy Huff, angelic walk-in angel Ariel at Angel Healing House. Candy provides intuitive counseling, Reiki, and angel readings in person in Los Angeles or nationally and internationally via phone or Skype. She will channel the practical tools you need to transform your life. Call now 831-277-3716 or visit angelhealinghouse.com.
Did you know that all of the shows on the Transformation Radio Network are available as podcasts to stream or download?
Really?
Check us out. Go to transformationradio.fm. We have business shows, spiritual shows, energy healing shows, and pretty much everything in between. Something for everyone, guaranteed to inspire, educate, and transform. We are transforming the world, one listener at a time.
Integrate spirituality into your everyday lives on Universe Soul Heart Radio. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as Kathleen Johnson explores the concept of sensible spirituality, keeping you grounded, connected, and centered on the path to wholeness. Kathleen has dedicated her life to facilitating holistic healing and wholeness in others. Listen to Universe Soul Heart Radio and learn how to flourish, grow, and impact all we do on planet Earth. For more information, go to universesoulheart.net.
What if your body and mind were the compasses to the secrets, mysteries, and magic of life? Glenna Rice, co-host of The Questionable Parent, is inviting you to access all that is possible. Glenna is a 10-year certified veteran access consciousness facilitator who offers an amazing variety of life-changing classes and workshops. Work with Glenna from anywhere with teleclasses and workshops all over the globe. To learn more and see Glenna's current schedule of events, classes, and workshops, visit glennarice.com.
Choose the new earth on the Cornelia Stephanie Show. Tune in each week on Transformation Talk Radio as Cornelia takes listeners on an odyssey of higher consciousness to inspire, educate, and empower. Cornelia guides people on the path of self-healing, peace, and liberation. The Cornelia Stephanie Show is your catalyst for anchoring heaven on earth on a global scale. For more information, go to corneliastephanie.com.
Welcome back from our break. Dorothy and I are so happy you are joining us and talking about intuition, exploring this idea of intuition with us on this show and the next 3 shows for the entire month of December. We're going to dive deep into intuition. Where does it come from? How is it useful? So, Dorothy, there was a quote. It was, I believe, it was the 3rd quote I left and said we could spend a whole show on this, and it just seems so. It seems so apropos for the climate we live in. Do you have that quote in front of you still?
Yes, it's the one. Intuition becomes increasingly valuable in the new information society, precisely because there is so much data.
And that's because you were saying before, so many, the first quotes were really about discoveries, which was about it being new, moving somewhere new. And then you were talking almost quantum of how intuition will take us right to the answer. And then that quote just talked to me about our own personal power and fake news, the cultural climate we live in. It seems like intuition can be a really wonderful resource, huh?
That's absolutely right. And it's it manifests in several ways. One of the ways that we're most familiar with is that attention to patterns and possibilities to make quick decisions because we're matching what we're experiencing right now with a pattern that we've experienced before. But as I mentioned before, Steve, in addition to that, there are other applications. And I mentioned that the U.S. military is doing research. One of the reasons why they are taking intuition seriously and looking at how to develop the intuitive faculty in their personnel is because they've become aware over and over again that certain groups of troops, for example, in Afghanistan or in dangerous situations, have the leader or someone with the group has suddenly had an intuition that something was about to happen. And they've been able to take action to, avoid being killed or to confront a group that they didn't know was there but that is there, and to do that successfully. And they became aware as they looked at these patterns that there was not a rational explanation. In other words, there wasn't a sign that popped up and said, danger here, and then they headed off a different direction. That somehow the troops were tapping into knowledge that was not readily apparent. And so they have taken this very seriously, and they've launched this, I think it's 3 years now or 4 years of study into intuition and how to harness it and how to also train the intuitive sense in people, because we can all intuit, but oftentimes we don't trust ourselves. We don't entrust that intuition, and if we don't pay attention to it, it goes away. It reminds me of a sign in my dentist's office that says, "Ignore your teeth and they'll go away." So it's the same thing with intuition, that we have to be paying attention, and if we pay attention in a particular way and act based on intuition, it becomes easier and easier to use that faculty.
Well, that makes me so optimistic. You said if we learn to pay attention in a particular way. I love that you just said that, because there is a particular way. We've got to allow we're talking so much about pinching off, ourselves, when we were talking about forgiveness and how it's sort of it can keep us from being connected to the whole, to the fullness of the human experience, which certainly in this instance transcends the physical. As you're saying, they have an intuition that something is going to happen, and it's not based on actual data. And how wonderful, and it gives me optimism that the Army, where people have to be accountable, that they would be doing research about intuition, what generates intuition, how do we foster that? Because for an organization, right, for the Army that is so based on statistics and facts, that they are generating data and doing studies and working towards intuitive capacities is so optimistic, right? Really wonderful. That makes me happy. They're teaching them meditation is what I'm getting at. In a roundabout way, I'm saying they're teaching them how to be mindful. They're teaching them how to be aligned, because it really does come down to that. It comes down to using all of our senses. It comes down to using the data that's already in our mind. It comes down to using our emotions, because, our emotions is really that's our navigation system. Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? And it's using your physical body. So it's and your mind, your higher mind, your creative capacities. So I find that's fascinating and so wonderful that indeed they've got to be teaching. I don't know what they're calling it, but they're teaching them how to meditate in the Army.
They're calling it intuition. They actually are.
Yes.
So, yes. But what's interesting to me as you talk about it that way, Steve, is that there really are, to me, three facets of the functioning of our intuition. One is the facet that we've been talking about just now, which is the ability to anticipate by tapping into the field of energy where everything is already happening. I mean, it just is. And so you can then see what the possibilities might be. We talked just before that about noticing patterns and matching patterns to patterns that we've seen before, and so being able to leap to the answer to a problem without having to go through all the intermediary steps. There's also a way that we actually use intuition every day, all of us, and we don't necessarily name it, but it is the same faculty, I think, and that is when we do routine tasks in a mindless manner or on autopilot. When we drive home without actually noticing anything about the route, because we intuitively know where we're supposed to go. And then we will signal ourselves if there's something that's really unusual in the pattern. But that's also part of the intuitive process, is being able to operate on autopilot in routine situations.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've been driving and I realize, wow, I don't remember the road for the last 5 minutes. I've just been on autopilot because I've been sort of processing something or thinking about something. Oh, you're never going to want to drive with me. But Dorothy, I just want to say where there can be some danger involved in that. And I only bring that up because, where I went with that third quote was, we hear so much rhetoric in the news. And we see that there are people who are deliberately putting messages out there that have an agenda that is really designed to manipulate people by creating patterns so that they, what we might, finger quote, call intuitive, is really just a rote response. And we've really got to use our intuition and sort of step back and recognize patterns in certain individuals and certain ways that we are fed information to sort of say, what does my intuition say, or what's behind that? I'm given so much information. Where do I go with that? It seems that there's so much data and so much information out there that we can really be misled if we are not aware, if we're not using our awareness and using our intuition in a way that is that's of a high vibration. That's
I come back to the concept of the moral compass.
Yes.
That if I have a strong ethical grounding, then vibrationally I can sense what is truth and what is not truth. But I have to keep coming back to that, right? I can't let that be drowned out. And I'm thinking of there was an incident that was reported, a week, 10 days ago, where there was a woman in Alabama that tried to trick a Washington Post reporter into, she was reporting falsely that she had been molested by Moore, and
impregnated, I believe it was.
Yeah, and she was doing that to then be able to say, "See, they made up all of this other stuff as a lie." She was part of a group that was trying to prove that they were that it was a lie, and so the article detailed how the reporter recognized that this was an untruth.
Yes.
How that was tested out. So it's intuition can't be separate from other modalities of knowing, but it is a very important modality, and it is one that we need to nurture so that it is clear and accurate in terms of what we get through our intuition.
And boy, reporters must use their intuition all the time, as you've got to sort of ferret out the facts and the data as happened with that fake news report. And I so appreciate that you bring up the moral compass, and perhaps we'll talk a little bit more about that after the next break, because the moral compass, you think I think of reporters and, they want to deliver the truth. And that is a moral stand. I stand behind the truth. And our moral compass really comes from, it is holistic. It involves our whole selves. We've got to really, in order to establish our moral compass at true north, man, we've got to be aligned. We've got to do the work. And let's talk about that, if you don't mind, a bit more when we come back from the break.
Sure.
I think it then talks about intuition and the spiritual and our spiritual path. So more on that when we come back from the break.
The Knowledge Book, currently studied in 39 countries and 15 languages around the world, accelerates our evolution, takes us out of depression, offers universal truth, protects us, and makes us stronger, both spiritually and physically. So if you are interested in the Knowledge Book, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net and tune in to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Amber Teal, founder of The Healthy Edge, is bringing you the hit show Healthy Edge Radio, living with power, passion, and purpose. Amber provides the support and tools necessary for you to finally release the weight and emotions that are hidden beneath the weight. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio. For more information on how you can take the next step with Amber, visit getthehealthyedge.com.
Isn't it time to put your health first, to give yourself the gift of whole body wellness? What if embracing unconditional love and self-care was the first step to wellness? Could you honor that for yourself? My name is Audrey Michelle, host of Rewired Life Radio and the author of Rewired Life, A Journey to Untangle Chronic Pain and Endometriosis. In my book, I share how I healed from 17 years of chronic pain and disease. Get your signed copy at audreymichelle.com/book, spelled MICHEL.com/book.
Tune in to the Psychic Professors Show, The Voices of Spirit Radio, with international medium and spirit artist Dr. Susan Barnes on Transformation Talk Radio, featuring a variety of spiritual topics such as psychic art, spiritualism, EVP, psychic development, and mediumship. This hit call-in show provides listeners with breakthrough wisdom to enliven and enlighten their lives. Visit spiritartgallery.net.
Tune in each Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio.
The Truth is Funny. Shift Happens with Colette Marie Steffen is excited to welcome Karen Benton as a monthly guest host. Tune in on the third Wednesday of each month at 8 a.m. Pacific Time to regain confidence and trust in your capacity to create change in your life, your health, your family, and your well-being. Karen Benton is a mother, nurse practitioner, certified body talk practitioner, Franklin Method instructor, and owner of Limitless Living LLC. For more information about Karen, visit KarenBenton.com.
Wow. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. This is Talk Radio to Thrive By. I'm telling you, I got to pinch myself some days because when each of us gets called to do something that we so not thought was in our wheelhouse to do for a purpose that's so much greater than us, we get to show up and shine.
If you would like to show up and shine on the Dr. Pat Show as a co-host or sponsor, send us an email to inspire@thedrpatshow.com.
Welcome back to Spirit Fire Radio. Just before the break, we were talking about moral compass. I just want to bring that up again because, Dorothy, I'm so happy you brought that up in this instance, because it seems to me in intuition, we really have to rely on our whole selves, on really knowing ourselves, and take refuge in that. Just living our truth seems to be what sets our moral compass, which is being, committing oneself to living their truth, and living truthfully is the result of living one's truth. So in this talk about the news and about intuition, and I love that it led to the moral compass. And wouldn't you say that's an aspect of the moral compass, which is living one's truth? And that is, as far as I'm concerned, that is walking the spiritual path.
I would add one other concept to that, Steve, and that is it's not just walking your own personal truth, but it is a commitment to the common good, to something that is more than just something that's satisfying for you personally, but that is something. It's a both-and solution, something that works for you individually and works for the group as a whole. And that usually the ethics involved in the moral compass are grounded in that sense of the common good, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I think when I was saying truth, it was with a capital T, right? That gets missing when we're talk radio, right? Yes, indeed. And I believe that it is from living from that truth, the truth that we are all interconnected, and committing oneself, to wanting to cooperate with that fact that intuition serves us. I actually believe personally, and this is just personally, that it is offered to us in that way. I sort of feel like that's where the door opens, and we allow intuition sort of it descends, if you will, it precipitates.
Well, I think that intuition, another way of describing it, which I think is related to what you're saying, is that intuition is what allows us into the flow of energy within our shared energetic field, this huge cosmic energetic field that we're part of. And it is through our intuition that we move beyond the concrete and the here and now, and we expand our awareness. It's an absolutely central capacity, and it relates to other qualities that are emphasized in just about every spiritual tradition that I'm aware of, like detachment. Not forcing one's way, not forcing one's will, but being open to whatever it is that is going to be the best for all. And intuition is what leads us there, and our attachment to just our own way blocks the intuitive sense.
Yeah, it sort of
because
creates.
we're no longer attached to the larger energy field, right?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned flow, because doesn't that seem to be when intuition really comes to you? It's when everything is just flowing beautifully. When you're not attached to something, or again, unconditional, when you're not reliant on a condition and you feel really present. I've just had those days, where everything seems to just be aligned and going well, and it builds, it grows, that's momentum. That seems to be when intuition is just so readily available, and it seems that we're just in our own beautiful flow, and that's because we are actually connected. We are actually within that, we're just totally locked in to the energy of the universe, and it's as if the universe is just providing us with, the next move or the next thought or the next moment. It's beautiful.
And that provision process is what we call intuition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And joy. I find that's when I'm at my most joyous as well, right? Because joy seems to be when we're totally just immersed in the moment. We're sort of living our truth and understanding our place. And it's just that awareness that we're totally interconnected with everything around us. And that seems to be when the next sort of thought drops in, or the next idea, and we go off in a different direction. So very useful intuition.
I would go so far as to say that spiritual development is actually not possible without attending to or developing or strengthening our intuition.
Yes. And Dorothy, are we going to cover how we do that on the next show?
Yes, that would be very good.
Yeah, I believe it's next week we're going to talk about that, how to, not only what gets in the way of our intuition, which is always a good way of learning how to develop it, but also tools that we can use so that we can develop our own intuition. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, any last words, Dorothy, before we wrap this show up?
Well, what I would urge our listeners is pay attention. When you feel that little niggling sense, that little hunch, that little voice that's saying, try this, don't, pause, be cautious, whatever it is, pay attention and notice what happens. And you can gradually strengthen the accuracy of that intuitive hunch.
Know that there are patterns everywhere, right? That's
right.
Understanding that we're a part of this sort of vortex that's happening at all times, and these patterns exist, and we can tap into information that's available to us all the time, every day, by noticing, being aligned and aware. Meditate, right?
Or we could say we know we're part of a big energy field, and that means that we're actually swimming in all kinds of knowledge.
Indeed. Patanjali, I love Patanjali calls it the rain cloud of knowable things. So it's as if it's all there all the time, and we have access to it, and it's just finding a way. It's actually comes down to not offering resistance, to allowing and being open and aligned. So indeed, we are going to continue this conversation for the next 3 weeks, talk about, once again, ways that what gets in the way of intuition and how can we develop intuition and ways that it can assist us in everyday life and in our spiritual path. So Dorothy, I just want to tell listeners, we've had so many amazing topics. We're on a new one, but if you've missed any, you can always find our archives at spiritfireradio.com or through Transformation Talk Radio, our wonderful hosts of this program, and just do a search on their website for Spirit Fire Radio.
Mm-hmm. Or you can find them at esotericstudies.net under the section on Media for the Soul. Beautiful.
Wonderful, Dorothy. Well, it has been a treat. And listeners, if you have any questions or is anything, if you're picking up, if there's a question that's just coming to your intuition, please feel free to send us an email to spiritfireradio@spiritfire.com. All right, Dorothy, that's a wrap. It's been a wonderful kickoff for intuition. I look forward to the rest of the month.
Yes, me too. Take care.
All right. Bye, listeners. It's been great to be with you.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Fire Radio. Tune in each Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern for your weekly guide to purposeful living and practical spirituality. Join hosts Steve Kramer and Dorothy Riddle as they shine the light on universal spiritual principles and uncover ways that ageless wisdom can guide you in cultivating consciousness in your everyday life. Add to your awareness with Spirit Fire Radio. To learn more, visit spiritfireradio.com.